Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly calm in the middle of chaos? Not when things were going your way, but when life threw the unexpected at you. A sharp comment from a coworker, an argument with someone you love. That moment when everything felt just a little too much. In today's world, calm is a rare luxury. Everything moves at lightning speed. Messages pile up. Demands come from every direction. And before you even get a chance to breathe, your emotions are already in the driver's seat. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if you could train your mind to remain centered, no matter what's happening around you? What if your peace didn't depend on whether people respected you, whether plans went your way, or whether life felt fair? What if you had the power to stay still in the storm? That's exactly what this video is about. You see, the Stoics, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, believe that we may not control external events, but we always control our inner response. And that belief, it's not just ancient wisdom, it's emotional survival in the modern age. Because here's the truth most people forget. You don't need to control the world to find peace. You only need to control how you show up in it. And that's something you can practice, something you can strengthen, like a muscle. In this video, we're going to explore 10 Stoic mental rules that will help you train your mind to stay calm in any situation. These aren't lofty ideas or vague theories. They're practical tools, simple shifts in how you think and respond, so that even when life is messy, you stay grounded. We're not here to pretend emotions don't exist. We're not suppressing anger, sadness, or fear. We're learning to see them without letting them lead us. We're learning to feel without falling apart. That's real power. Because when the world spins fast and people react impulsively, the calmest mind in the room becomes the strongest force. It's not loud. It doesn't have to prove anything. It simply holds with clarity, purpose, and inner discipline. So if you've been feeling emotionally hijacked lately, if stress is running your days, or if you've ever said, "I just can't take this anymore," then I want you to know there is another way, the Stoic way. And no, you don't need to become a philosopher or meditate for hours. You just need a moment, a pause, a willingness to see your reactions as choices, not automatic outcomes. Because the moment you realize that, you take your power back. So let's begin this journey together. Let's learn how to train the mind, not to ignore the world, but to face it with a steady heart and clear intention. Let's discover what happens when you stop trying to control everything and start mastering what matters most: yourself. Rule 1: separate feelings from reactions. Let's talk about something that most people never learn, something that can completely change how you experience your day-to-day life. It's this simple truth. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. Emotions are part of being human. Anger, fear, sadness, even excitement. These are all natural responses to what happens around us. But the mistake many of us make is letting those feelings drive our behavior, like an untrained horse pulling us wherever it wants. Think about the last time you said something in anger and instantly regretted it, or the time you got emotional, made a decision too quickly, and later thought, "What was I thinking?" That's not because you're weak. It's because the first reaction to any intense moment is usually emotional. That's how the brain is wired. But here's where your power lies: the pause between stimulus and response. And that pause, that's everything. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them." In other words, it's not the event, it's how you react to it. So let's break that down. You get cut off in traffic. Your heart rate spikes. You feel disrespected. You want to shout, speed up, prove a point. But if you pause, if you breathe and ask, is this feeling serving me or is it just a reflex? Suddenly you've interrupted the automatic pattern. You've gone from being reactive to being intentional. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The truth is, emotions come and go like weather. But if you let them dictate your actions, you build storms where there could have been silence. You risk damaging relationships, opportunities, and your peace of mind, all because of a momentary feeling. And the thing about emotions, they feel urgent, but they're not always true. Your anger might not mean injustice. Your sadness doesn't always mean failure. And your fear isn't necessarily a sign to run. The ability to observe your feelings without obeying them is one of the most powerful forms of self-mastery you can develop. And it's not about suppression. This isn't about pretending you're not upset or faking calm. It's about owning the feeling without letting it control you. You can feel frustration and still respond with patience. You can feel hurt and still choose dignity over reaction. You can feel fear and still take action. That's the Stoic way, and it's something you can start practicing immediately. Next time a strong emotion rises, whether it's irritation from a comment, anxiety over an unexpected change, or sadness from being let down, pause, take one deep breath, then ask yourself, is this emotion leading me to a wise action, or is it pulling me into chaos? That one question can change the course of your response and maybe even your entire day. Let me be honest, it's not easy at first, but like any mental skill, it grows with practice. And every time you choose to respond instead of react, you're building a quieter, stronger version of yourself, one that's not easily shaken. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing, no matter what happens, you have the ability to stay composed. Not because life is perfect, but because you've trained your mind to lead with clarity, not chaos. That's where real freedom begins. Not in controlling everything around you, but in learning to separate what you feel from what you do. You're not a puppet to your emotions. You're the author of your reactions. So the next time life tries to hijack your peace, pause and take the wheel back. Rule 2. When provoked, don't show weakness. Let me ask you something. When someone says something hurtful, maybe out of nowhere, what's your first instinct? Do you defend yourself, snap back, maybe even stew in silence, but replay the moment over and over? It's okay. You're human. That impulse to react, to fire back, to prove a point, it's built into all of us. But here's the hard truth. Every time you react emotionally to a provocation, you give away your power. Let that sink in for a moment. You might feel like you're standing up for yourself, but what's really happening is you're letting someone else control your emotional state. They press a button and you dance. Now think about that. Do you really want to live in a way where your peace depends on someone else's behavior? The Stoics didn't think so. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, and one of the most powerful men in history, wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Even he, surrounded by pressure, politics, betrayal, reminded himself daily, you cannot control others. You can only control how you respond. So what does this mean for you and me today? It means that when someone provokes you, whether it's a coworker throwing shade in a meeting, a loved one making a passive-aggressive comment, or a stranger online trying to bait you into anger, you don't have to react. In fact, your silence, your stillness, can be the most powerful response. It's not weakness, it's mastery. You're not ignoring the disrespect. You're choosing not to let it hijack your clarity. Because here's the truth. People who try to provoke you are often trying to pull you down to their level. They feed off your reaction. They want your attention, your energy, your emotional slip. When you don't give it to them, when you stay poised, grounded, unshaken, it confuses them. It disarms the entire moment. And more importantly, it protects your inner world. Think about it. How many arguments have you walked away from feeling worse, not better, just because you got pulled into a drama that didn't even matter 5 hours later? You didn't win. You just lost time, energy, and peace. So here's a different approach. Next time you feel that heat rise in your chest, that familiar tension, that urge to clap back, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this really worth my energy? What outcome do I want here? And then choose the high road. Let your calm be the message. Let your self-control be the power move. You don't need to prove your worth in a heated moment. The way you don't react already says everything. This isn't about suppressing your voice or tolerating disrespect. It's about choosing your battles with wisdom. It's about understanding that not every provocation deserves your energy. Some don't even deserve your presence. And the more you practice this restraint, the more powerful you become. You stop being predictable. You stop being manipulatable. You start living in a state of emotional freedom. So today, here's your challenge. Notice your triggers. Catch that urge to react. And just for a moment, choose stillness. Watch what happens. You'll feel stronger, not weaker. You'll walk away with your energy intact, your peace preserved, and your dignity higher than ever. Because in a world full of loud reactions, the one who stays calm isn't weak. They're in control. And that's true power. Rule 3, life isn't fair, adapt anyway. Let's face it, life doesn't always play by the rules. You can do everything right. You can show up on time, work hard, be kind, be honest, and still get overlooked, still get hurt, still watch someone else cut the line. That can be incredibly frustrating, right? Because deep down, we all crave fairness. We want things to make sense. We want life to feel like a just system, where effort equals reward, where kindness is returned, where bad things happen for a reason. But here's the truth that's hard to swallow. Life is not fair, and it never promised it would be. And the more we expect it to be, the more we demand justice from a world that's never been perfectly just, the more we suffer. Because every time we say, this shouldn't be happening, or it's not supposed to be like this, we resist reality. And that resistance becomes our pain. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't waste energy asking, why is the world unfair? They asked instead, how will I respond to the world as it is? Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In other words, if you base your peace of mind on whether life treats you fairly, you will always be at its mercy. But if you shift that focus inward toward what you can control, your actions, your thoughts, your choices, then you reclaim your power. So let me ask you, what's your default response when something unfair happens? Do you shut down? Get bitter? Fall into the trap of, why me? We've all been there. But what if you change the question? Instead of, why me? Try asking, what now? It's a small shift, but it's everything. Why me? Keeps you stuck in the past. What now? Moves you forward. It doesn't mean you have to be okay with the injustice. It doesn't mean you stop caring about what's right. But it does mean you stop tying your peace to things you can't control. Because here's the real tragedy. Most people waste years waiting for life to be fair, before they give themselves permission to be happy. But what if you gave yourself that permission now, even in the mess? What if you stopped waiting for the world to change and started building the strength to navigate it as it is? This is where resilience lives, not in fantasy, but in reality, not in the hope that everything will go your way, but in the faith that you'll handle it even when it doesn't. So next time you're hit with something that feels unfair, maybe someone else gets the promotion, maybe a friend betrays your trust, maybe you're just dealt a hard hand. Don't spin your energy around the injustice. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what's in my control right now? How can I carry myself through this with grace and wisdom? You don't have to like it, but you can rise above it. Because emotional freedom doesn't come from life being easy. It comes from knowing you can meet life on its terms and still hold your peace. And that's what Stoicism teaches us. Not how to avoid life's pain, but how to face it without falling apart. How to stay calm in the chaos. And how to choose courage over complaint. You might not be able to make life fair, but you can make yourself strong enough to meet life as it is, with clarity, purpose, and a calm heart. And that is more powerful than fairness could ever be. Rule 4, stop explaining yourself. Let me say something that might feel uncomfortable at first, but deeply freeing if you let it settle. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to live your life. Let that land for a moment. You don't need to justify your career path, your boundaries, your spiritual practices, your relationships, your quiet days, your bold dreams to anyone. But so often we do. We explain ourselves, not because we want to, but because we feel like we have to. Have you ever made a personal decision and immediately felt the urge to soften it, to add, I know it might seem strange, but, or, I just didn't have another option, or even worse, I hope you understand. Why do we do that? Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that being accepted matters more than being aligned, that being understood is safer than being authentic. But that mindset, it's exhausting. And over time, it chips away at your self-trust. Here's the truth most people don't realize until much later in life. The more you try to explain yourself, the more power you give away. You open the door to opinions that don't belong. You invite judgment into decisions that were never theirs to begin with. And slowly, almost invisibly, you start making choices for approval instead of for yourself. The Stoics knew this well. They weren't interested in how others interpreted their path. They were interested in one thing, living in alignment with their values. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, once reminded himself that other people's opinions were outside of his control and therefore not worth his energy. What mattered most was integrity, not applause. So let me ask you, where in your life are you explaining too much? Maybe you're justifying why you ended a friendship that didn't feel right anymore, or why you chose rest over hustle, or why your goals look different from those around you. And here's the thing, people will always have questions. They might even get uncomfortable when you set boundaries or step off the beaten path. But their confusion, it's not your responsibility to fix. You don't owe the world a PowerPoint presentation on your piece. In fact, here's a powerful practice you can start using today. When someone challenges your decision, instead of launching into an explanation, say this, because I decided to. That's it. Simple, grounded, final. You'd be surprised how liberating it feels. Not defensive, not dismissive, just sovereign. Because when you stop explaining, something incredible happens. You begin trusting yourself more. You stop filtering your life through the lens of what others might think. You start living for truth, not permission. And no, this isn't about arrogance. It's about clarity. It's about owning the fact that your life is yours to live, not perform. So the next time you feel that pull to over-explain, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I want connection or because I fear judgment? Do I need their understanding or is my own understanding enough? Because here's what I believe. Peace begins when you no longer beg to be understood, and power begins when you no longer feel the need to explain. So walk your path. Let it be quiet or loud, bold or subtle, traditional or unconventional. But let it be yours, not because others approve of it, but because you chose it with intention. That's what self-respect sounds like. And that's a sound you never need to explain. Rule 5. No one should control your mood. Let's get honest for a moment. How often do you say something like this? I was fine until they said that. They ruined my whole day. If only they hadn't done that, I wouldn't feel this way. We've all been there, but here's the tough truth behind those words. You're giving someone else control over your mood, and that's a power far too valuable to hand out. Your emotions, your energy, your peace of mind are yours. They're not toys for the world to toss around. They're not buttons for anyone to push. But unless you train your awareness, it's easy to forget that. Because here's what usually happens. You wake up feeling good. You're steady, clear, present. Then someone cuts you off in traffic, or your coworker sends a passive-aggressive email, or your partner makes a comment that hits a little too close, and suddenly it's gone. The calm, the focus, the joy, hijacked by someone else's words or behavior. But let me offer you a mindset shift. They didn't steal your peace. You gave it away. And that's not meant to blame. It's meant to empower. Because if you gave it away, you can take it back. The Stoics taught this over and over again. Epictetus reminded his students, no person is free who is not master of himself. And part of that self-mastery is emotional responsibility. Knowing that while you may not control how you feel in the first few seconds, you do control what you do next. You do get to choose whether to hold on to that irritation or release it, whether to escalate that tension or diffuse it, whether to absorb someone else's energy or stay rooted in your own. So here's a practical way to start shifting that. Whenever something triggers you, whether it's a comment, a look, a tone, pause. Yes, pause. That little space between reaction and response, that's your window to reclaim your power. Take a breath and ask yourself, do I really want to feel this way because of them? Is this emotion useful or is it just familiar? You see, most people live on emotional autopilot. They assume that if something upsets them, it must be valid. But emotion isn't always truth. It's information. And you get to decide what to do with that information. You don't have to suppress it. This isn't about pretending you're fine when you're not. It's about consciously choosing how long you carry it. You can feel the frustration and let it pass. You can notice the sadness without letting it run your day. You can be disappointed without becoming bitter. That's emotional maturity, and it's one of the most liberating practices you'll ever develop. Because when you take back ownership of your mood, everything changes. You stop blaming. You stop reacting. You stop being emotionally manipulated by people who haven't earned that kind of access to your mind. You become the calm within the storm, the grounded presence that others can't shake. So here's something to try today. Pick one moment, just one, when you feel triggered. Instead of reacting, pause for 5 seconds. Notice the feeling, acknowledge it, and then gently ask, what's the most peaceful, most powerful way I could respond right now? You'll be amazed at how different life feels when you stop outsourcing your emotional state. Remember, You are not a mood swinging in someone else's wind. You're the anchor. And when you live from that place of ownership, of calm, of clarity, no one gets to control you unless you let them. So choose your response, not because you're emotionless, but because you've decided your peace is more valuable than any passing frustration. That's stoic strength. That's emotional freedom. And that's yours to claim every single day. Rule 6. Silence is your most dangerous weapon. Let me tell you something most people overlook. Silence isn't weakness. In fact, in the right moment, it's the most powerful weapon you have. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you, maybe with a snide remark, a raised voice, or an unfair accusation. What did you do? Most of us feel an instant urge to respond, to explain, to defend, to fight back, because somewhere along the way we were taught that staying silent means backing down. But what if I told you the opposite is true? What if silence is actually the ultimate power move? Here's what the Stoics knew. When emotions are high, wisdom gets quiet. And in the heat of conflict, reacting quickly almost always makes things worse. Words spoken in anger rarely heal. They often inflame. They escalate the tension, create misunderstanding, and pull you deeper into drama you didn't ask for. But when you choose not to react right away, when you pause, breathe, and stay silent, you shift the energy entirely. Instead of being pulled into their storm, you remain in your calm. Instead of playing the game, you step off the board. And that silence, it speaks volumes. It says, I'm in control here. Not my ego, not my anger, me. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, practiced this often. He reminded himself to respond with thought, not impulse, to stay composed even when others were chaotic. Because silence isn't about avoidance. It's about authority. The kind of authority that doesn't need to prove itself to be real. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone undermines your idea in front of everyone. Your chest tightens. You feel the sting of disrespect. You could jump in and defend yourself. Your instinct says do it, but you don't. You pause. You breathe. You give it 5 full seconds. And in that silence, 2 powerful things happen. First, you give yourself space to think clearly. You don't let your emotions hijack your next move. You decide, consciously, whether a response is even necessary. Second, you take back control of the room. Your calmness makes people wonder what you're thinking. It creates tension, but in a good way. You've just shifted the dynamic without saying a single word. Because silence doesn't mean you're not feeling something. It means you're choosing to respond, not react. And the beauty is, most of the time, when you say nothing, people reveal more about themselves than you ever could with a clever comeback. So here's a simple but powerful practice you can start using today. The next time you feel provoked, pause. 5 seconds, that's all. Long enough to check in with yourself. Ask, will speaking now bring clarity or more conflict? Is this about truth or just ego? Sometimes silence is the answer. Other times it simply gives you enough space to find the right words, ones that come from wisdom, not reaction. And look, this doesn't mean you become passive. You're not letting people walk all over you. You're not pretending something doesn't matter when it does. What you're doing is protecting your energy, your reputation, and your peace of mind. Because in a noisy world full of overreaction, the person who can stay silent holds real power. So today I challenge you, don't rush to fill every gap in conversation. Don't feel pressure to respond just because someone expects you to. Let silence be your edge. Let it slow things down. Let it give you space to rise above. Because when you learn to use silence not as a retreat, but as a deliberate act of power, that's when you become unshakable. That's when your presence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Rule 7. Don't expect respect, make it necessary. Let's talk about something that many people crave, but few people truly understand. Respect. It's one of the most powerful forms of validation we can receive. And yet, here's the truth most people miss. Respect isn't something you get by asking for it. It's something you earn by how you live. So many of us chase approval, often without realizing it. We work harder than necessary just to be seen. We over-explain, over-perform, even overextend ourselves, just hoping someone will notice. Just hoping someone will say, "You're doing great. I respect you." But here's the thing. When you chase respect, it runs further away. Respect doesn't come to those who demand it. It comes to those who embody it. It's not awarded by others. It's revealed through who you are. Think about the people in your life you truly admire. Are they loud? Are they constantly trying to prove themselves? Or do they carry themselves with quiet strength, clear values, and unshakable self-discipline? You respect them not because they beg for it, but because they live in a way that makes it impossible not to. The Stoics lived by this principle. They didn't spend time worrying about whether the crowd agreed. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to win followers. He wrote to stay aligned with his own moral compass. He led by example, not by explanation. And you can do the same. You don't need to convince people to respect you. You need to become the kind of person who makes respect unavoidable. So how do you do that? Start with self-discipline. Show up consistently, not just when it's convenient. Hold yourself to a standard, even when no one's watching. The way you treat your time, your commitments, your energy, that says more about you than any speech ever could. Then layer in integrity. Do what you say you'll do. Speak with honesty. Move with purpose. Not because it looks good, but because it feels right. When your actions align with your values, something powerful happens. People trust you. Even if they don't agree with you, they respect you because they see that you're living from conviction, not performance. And here's something else to remember. Respect isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in silence, in the way people pause when you enter a room, in the way they speak a little more carefully around you, not out of fear, but out of admiration. So stop chasing recognition, stop waiting for applause, and instead, start leading yourself. Because leadership isn't a title. It's how you carry yourself when no one's clapping. It's the quiet choices you make, the boundaries you hold, and the truth you walk in, even when it's uncomfortable. Ask yourself today, am I living in a way that commands respect, or am I still seeking it? And if the answer stings a little, that's okay. It's not about perfection. It's about course correcting, choosing to live with more strength, more clarity, more truth starting now. Here's a powerful shift to carry with you. From this point on, don't expect respect. Don't explain yourself into it. Make it necessary. Make it impossible to ignore. Not because you're shouting, but because your actions speak so clearly. Let your life be the proof. Let your character be the message. Let your presence be the standard. That's how you stop chasing respect and start living in a way that demands it, quietly, powerfully, and without needing anyone's permission. Rule 8. Don't show weakness to those who can't help. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Not everyone deserves access to your struggle. We live in a world that encourages vulnerability. Open up, be real, share what you're going through. And yes, there is a place for that. There is real power in being seen, in being honest, in connecting through pain. But there's a fine line between being vulnerable and being exposed. The truth is, sharing your weakness with the wrong person can do more harm than good. Have you ever confided in someone, hoping for support, only to walk away feeling misunderstood, dismissed, or even judged? It stings. Not because you were wrong to feel what you felt, but because you handed a fragile part of yourself to someone who wasn't equipped or willing to hold it with care. That's not strength, that's misplacement. And misplacing your pain is how you end up feeling even more alone. The Stoics knew this. They weren't closed off or emotionally numb, but they were incredibly discerning. They believed in self-reliance, but also in wise counsel. And they understood this key idea. Your pain is sacred. Your healing is sacred. Not everyone should be invited into that space. So before you share your burdens, ask yourself, can this person actually help me? Do they have the wisdom, the compassion, or the clarity to support me? Or are they just someone to talk at? It's not about being secretive or cold. It's about protecting your emotional energy. Because here's what happens when you open up to someone who can't help. They minimize your experience. They make it about themselves. They offer empty advice that makes you feel worse. Or worse, they store that information and use it against you later. And suddenly, your courage to be open becomes ammunition in the wrong hands. But here's the beautiful flip side. When you choose wisely, when you open up to someone grounded, compassionate, and emotionally intelligent, healing happens faster. Not because they fix it for you, but because they hold space for you to process, reflect, and strengthen yourself. It's the difference between sharing with someone who says, "That must be really hard. How can I support you?" And someone who says, "Well, that's just life. Get over it." So how do you know who to trust? Look at how they respond to your smaller moments. Do they listen with presence? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they hold your emotions with maturity? Or do they gossip, interrupt, and redirect? Your emotional life is not a public stage. It's a private sanctuary, and not everyone gets a key. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about turning inward, about solving problems with the quiet strength of your own mind. He believed that while external support can be helpful, the real foundation must come from within. And that means you choose who enters your emotional space. You decide who is safe. So here's your practice today. Before you vent, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing this for clarity or for validation? Is this person able to hold this truth, or am I handing them something too fragile for their hands? Because when you protect your emotional boundaries, you build real strength. You stop bleeding in front of people who can't bandage you. You stop expecting understanding from those who aren't ready to give it. And instead, you move through your struggles with intention, not impulse. You speak to those who can truly hear you. You grow with those who can truly support you. So no, you don't have to hide your pain, but you do have to respect it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't sharing it with the world. It's choosing carefully who gets to witness your healing. Rule 9. Don't argue with emotional people. Let's talk about one of the easiest ways to lose your peace and one of the smartest ways to protect it. Arguing with emotionally charged people. You know the moment. Someone's raising their voice, twisting your words, or completely missing the point. You stay calm at first, but before you know it, you're pulled into their storm. You're defending yourself, repeating yourself, trying to make them see. And when it's over, you feel drained, frustrated, and no closer to resolution. Here's why. Emotionally reactive people aren't looking for solutions. They're looking for a release. They're not interested in truth. They're not ready to listen. They're caught in their feelings, and they want you to jump in with them. But here's what the Stoics understood. You don't win by engaging. You win by not entering the arena. Epictetus once said, when someone irritates you, it's not their actions that disturb you, but your judgment of them. In other words, the real damage isn't what they say. It's how much energy you give to it. And the moment you argue with someone who's emotionally hijacked, you give them exactly what they're unconsciously seeking. More fuel, more chaos, more attention. You might be trying to be reasonable. You might be trying to set the record straight, but in a heated emotional state, logic doesn't land. It bounces right off the wall of ego, pride, and pain. So what's the wiser path? Don't try to win. Try to walk away. It's not about being passive. It's about being strategic with your energy. Ask yourself, is this conversation going anywhere productive? Am I trying to communicate, or am I just reacting? If you're caught in an emotional loop where everything you say gets twisted, where nothing gets resolved, pause. Step back. Take the high road, not because you're afraid to fight, but because you know better than to waste your energy on a battle that has no peace in it. Let them yell. Let them project. Let them create drama in their own space. You don't have to enter it, because when you refuse to engage in emotional chaos, something powerful happens. You protect your peace. You stay grounded. You preserve your dignity. And most importantly, you stop pouring energy into a dynamic that was never about resolution to begin with. Think about it. How many times have you tried to win an argument with someone who wasn't ready to listen? Did it make you feel better or worse? Now imagine if, instead of arguing, you simply smiled, paused, and said, I'm not going to have this conversation right now, and walked away. That's not weakness. That's emotional intelligence. Because sometimes silence says everything. Sometimes removing yourself is the most powerful message you can send. And over time, you realize something freeing. You don't need to explain yourself to people who aren't open. You don't need to defend your truth in every room. You don't need to meet every challenge with a counterattack. Your peace is more valuable than being right. So the next time someone tries to bait you into a fight, stop, breathe, and ask yourself, what's the cost of engaging right now? What would it feel like to simply not? Emotional maturity is learning that not every battle deserves your presence. Not every fight is yours to fight, and often the strongest response is no response at all. You're not here to be pulled into every storm. You're here to stay centered, no matter how loud the world gets. So let others spiral. You stay still. Let them throw words. You hold your ground. That's what true control looks like, and that's how you protect your mind, one non-argument at a time. Rule 10. True intelligence is a cold mind in hot situations. Here's a question we rarely stop to ask ourselves in the heat of the moment. What would I do if I were calm, not angry, not anxious, not pressured, just clear, grounded, still? Because that, right there, that question is the mark of true intelligence. It's not how smart you are when everything's peaceful. It's how you think when things fall apart. It's how you move when the pressure rises, the stakes feel high, and your emotions are screaming for control. A cold mind in a hot situation, that's real power. And the Stoics knew this well. They didn't chase emotional perfection. They trained for emotional composure. They understood that chaos is inevitable. But your reaction to chaos, that's where your wisdom lives. Because here's the truth. When emotions rise, judgment falls. Your ability to think clearly, act rationally, and choose wisely all get hijacked by adrenaline, ego, or fear. And if you're not careful, you'll say something you regret. Make a decision that costs you, or become the storm instead of anchoring through it. But when you pause, even for just a moment, you change everything. You go from reacting to responding, from emotional reflex to thoughtful direction. And that shift, tiny as it seems, can prevent a conflict, save a relationship, or protect your peace of mind. Let me ask you, how many times in your life have you thought, if I had just taken a breath, I would have handled that differently? We've all been there. But what if next time you do take that breath? What if, in the heat of an argument, you pause instead of shouting back? What if, under pressure at work, you step back instead of rushing into damage control? What if, when your heart is racing, your mind stays cool? That's not detachment. That's discipline. That's you saying, my peace is more important than this moment's urgency. My response is my responsibility, even if the situation isn't my fault. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote pages and pages reminding himself of this exact idea. He couldn't control what others did. He couldn't predict every storm, but he could choose how to face them. And he trained his mind daily to stay calm when others collapsed. You can do the same. You don't need to become emotionless. You just need to become clearer than your chaos. And it starts with a simple daily habit. Whenever pressure rises, ask yourself, what would the calm version of me do right now? That question is your reset button. It slows down the moment. It gives you space to breathe. And from that space, clarity returns. You remember what matters. You remember who you are. And you act not from the fire, but from the center of it. Because here's what wisdom sounds like in real life. Not snapping when someone disrespects you. Not rushing a decision just to escape discomfort. Not escalating chaos just because it's easier than staying composed. Wisdom is restraint. Wisdom is presence. Wisdom is choosing clarity over control, purpose over panic. So today, wherever life presses in, pause. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be a little more present than your emotions. And if you practice that moment by moment, you'll discover something profound. You become the calm in the chaos. You become the steady hand in a world of reaction. You become the one who doesn't just survive hard moments, but leads through them. And that is what true intelligence looks like. Conclusion: mastering your emotions starts here. So here we are. 10 powerful rules, 10 timeless reminders that in a world full of noise, chaos, and unpredictability, your calm mind is your greatest strength. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this. Mastering your emotions isn't about denying them. It's not about pretending you don't get hurt, frustrated, or overwhelmed. It's about something much more courageous. Choosing how you respond. That's the real power. It's not reactive. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's quiet, intentional, and often invisible to the outside world, but deeply transformative on the inside. Because the truth is, life won't stop testing you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall through. Emotions will rise. And in those moments, it's easy to let the world pull you into its chaos. But when you've trained your mind, when you've practiced these 10 rules, something shifts. You stop chasing control and start cultivating clarity. You stop trying to win every moment and start choosing the moments that are truly worth your energy. And most of all, you realize that peace of mind isn't something you find. It's something you build, one choice at a time. That's what the Stoics taught. And it's what this video was meant to remind you of. So here's my final invitation to you. You don't need to master all 10 rules today. You don't need to become a philosopher overnight, but you can choose one rule, just one, that resonated with you, and apply it. Maybe today's the day you pause before reacting. Maybe today you choose silence over drama. Maybe today you stop explaining yourself or stop letting someone else control your mood. Just one choice, one shift, one breath, and then watch. Watch how that one moment of discipline creates a ripple. Watch how much lighter your mind feels when you stop clinging to things outside your control. Watch how much stronger you become, not by force, but by clarity. You're not here to live perfectly. You're here to live intentionally. So don't wait for the next breakdown to start practicing emotional discipline. Start now. Start small. Start steady. Because the more you live by these principles, the less life will shake you, the less people will pull you off course, and the more you'll feel rooted in something no one can take away, your own inner strength. And that's the kind of power the world desperately needs right now. So keep training your mind, keep protecting your peace, and remember, no one is coming to do this for you. Your emotional stability is your responsibility, and your calm is your legacy. Let's keep building it. One breath, one choice, one day at a time.